Welcome back, everybody, to another Kicking Tables. On today's show, we have the privilege of welcoming Dennis Furia, the creator of Deck of Wonders. Dennis, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So your campaign starts very, very soon, August 25th. You've got your Deck
Yes.
of Wonders. It is a solo and co-op, sort of a twist on Magic the Gathering style gaming, but it's a
hmm
solo. Tell us about Deck of Wonders. What is the game and how do you play this?
Yeah. And Magic the Gathering was absolutely an inspiration. I would say Hearthstone is an inspiration as well. I wanted to capture that collectible card game feel. And I also wanted to capture the feel of a more complex strategic game. I love games like Gloomhaven and just weightier, more in-depth games. You can see, that's the legacy component coming
Yeah.
through. But I'm a parent of two and with another on the way, so I have no time. And the people I tend to play with
Yeah. We
have
know what
no
that's like.
time.
We know what that's like.
Yeah, it's a miracle I'm here right now. I had to drug my family make sure
That's
they were
fair.
asleep.
That's fair.
That's how you
So
do
I
it.
was I was lamenting with my gaming group after a session of Gloomhaven where we spent 6 months planning to get everyone in a room, and then spent 3 hours setting up, half hour playing, 3 hours tearing down. And we're just
Yes.
like, this sucks. Like, I mean, the game is great. The game, don't get me wrong there, but it's hard in general to coordinate some of those more complex games sometime. And that planted a seed talking with one of the friends about what if you could do an experience that was no less complex, no less strategic, but was solo, so you could play it whenever you wanted, was portable, so it could fit in your pocket, and you could just have 15 minutes over lunchtime or 15 minutes between classes or while kids are down for a nap, and be able to have that experience that we love just on your terms. And that's really what Deck of Wonders is. And that was the inspiration for it.
That is
So
so exciting. I've seen some of your videos on how to play this game, and I have to say, first of all, the artwork you've got, and I know it's not complete yet. You're still working on it, but it's beautiful. It's
Yes.
absolutely fantastic. Who's your artist for this game?
Yeah, Lauren Brown. Look her up. She's LAB illustration on the internet
It's just
generally.
beautiful, beautiful
She is
artwork.
she is a genius. I love her work so much. And it's funny. It's one of those things where I was stumbling around at Gen Con in 2019 when we could actually have an in-person Gen Con.
Yes.
Uh, and like I had this idea in my head for what I wanted, but I had no visual vocabulary. And so basically, I'd make a fool out of myself by walking up to these artists and trying to tell them what I was looking for and making no sense whatsoever. And I walked up to Lauren's booth and started on, I'm kind of looking for this, like this, like
Hmm.
it was that simple and that perfect. So she has been amazing to work with, and I'm so excited to have her doing all the card art for the game. And I'm hopeful that after the Kickstarter, I can just inundate her with a bunch of new pieces to work on.
Awesome. So you described this actually in your campaign, or I think on your website, as a solo first game. What do you mean by solo first? Can you still play with someone, and does it change gameplay at all if you bring someone else in?
Yeah, it does. Let's talk about the co-op mode. And this is something I've opened up about more recently. It's been a bit closely guarded until now. Um, so yeah, I designed it 100% with solo first. I wanted the best possible experience for a solo player, and that was the alpha and omega. However, as I was designing, the format of the game really lends itself to some interesting co-op elements. I didn't want to do a straight up, hey, you can play this as a versus game. That
Okay.
doesn't make sense, and we'll get into it. The way the cards are structured, one side of the cards, the villain's side, is overtly overpowered. Like the villain,
I noticed that. Like you have
yeah,
deliberately made it difficult for the player.
Yes, and that's because fate does not like you. So let's talk about the story here.
Sure.
You've stolen the deck of wonders from fate herself. She's like the deity that rules this world, and the deck of wonders is her treasured magical artifact. And you've taken it. So she's understandably furious with you. She's sending her followers after you to take it back. The darker forces in the world are coming after you because they're like, oh no, well now we can take it for ourselves. That fate doesn't have it. And you've got a bit of a one ring scenario where you've taken something without realizing how powerful it is, and now everyone's after you. And this theme of like fate is pissed off at you. You have done fate wrong, and she is coming for you. And so the villain gets every advantage. All the rules are bent in favor of the villain. The minions are faster, bigger, stronger, have better card text when they come out for the minion or for the villain.
Right.
And so if you were to do a straight versus mode, one player is just going to crush the
Oh
other
yeah.
every single time.
Yeah, yeah.
So I started playing around with like, what if there could be a co-op mode? And there's multiple villains in Deck of Wonders. So you select the villain that you're going to face off against to start your game in that 15-minute segment. And so in co-op mode, one player selects one villain, another player selects another, and then you both have to build your decks accordingly and defeat your villains in parallel. Now that's a
Oh.
tall order because the game is balanced to be very difficult. In addition to everything I just described, the average win rate, as I've done close to 400 games of playtesting now, the average win rate is around 1 in 3. So
That's
to have
actually
to do
really
that,
good. That's not bad. I mean,
mhm, mhm.
for a versus for a game that you're playing against the game, that's actually a really good. Because you don't want it to be super easy. You don't want to sit down and win every time you play, right?
You want to
You
feel
want to
like
get
you earned it.
close. You want to get close every time, so you just play one more time each time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every game is attainable. It's possible to win, but you don't always get there. And so to try to do that 2 times over at once in the co-op mode is especially difficult, right? Because now you've got to not just be one boss, but another. The advantage you get to help you manage that is that before you draw each turn, players are allowed to pass one card to their partner.
Okay.
And so let's say you are in desperate need of a board clear, and your opponent is maybe a little bit ahead. You can beg them and be like, "No, hey, you give me that card you drew last turn. I'll take that and use it to stay ahead, and I'll give you something else for it." And so
So it's
you're
more like
trading
you're
resources.
playing side by side, but
Hmm.
have that card trading. You're not playing. You're not helping each other per se, but
Hmm.
you've got a card trading mechanic.
Exactly. And
Okay.
the idea is, let's say one player is way ahead, the other is behind. The player that's ahead could pass a card and not ask for one in return.
Right.
Now that's a dangerous thing to do. You can find yourself behind on cards very easily in this game. So hopefully that keeps things balanced and interesting if you want to play it with more than one person.
Will each player need their own deck to play co-op? Or
They will, and that
okay.
it will all be in the same game. So you don't have to buy 2 copies to play this
That
co-op.
okay, that's what I was
Okay.
trying. Yeah, that's excellent. That's fantastic.
And so
Does it?
it's asymmetric in some ways because you're facing a different villain, and the villains are very different in the way that they play.
Can you play with more than 2 players? Is this like, can you get 4 people going at once and have like a whole adventure party going?
That well, first off, you would need
You
well.
would need
Oh, now you got my mind going. I
Oh,
think
here we go.
stretch goal.
Stretch goals. Here we come.
Goal notes. You could using that same kind of principle. I would want to give you more structure on like so each player can pass one card. They would decide who it goes to.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you could play that way. At a certain point, you'll run out of cards in the base game. You will have to buy another. That's probably around the 4 or more mark. But yeah, that's it's interesting. I kind of like that idea. Like I said, my focus has been entirely on solo and making
Sure.
that a great experience.
I mean, that's
But
the
I,
core of this game. Is it is a
Yeah.
solo TCG. You know, and
Mhm.
it's such a unique concept, Dennis, to create a solo TCG. That's no one else has done this. Like I don't know of any other TCG that you can play solo.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I born of the desperation of a parent with no time.
We all know that feeling. Um, Question. So there's legacy elements in this game as well. How are those implemented? How do we see the legacy stuff come into play?
Yeah, great question. every villain has legacy packs associated with them. And you don't know what's in those packs, you just know the objective for when you open it. And I've tried to keep it so that it's objectives beyond just winning, so that you incentivize the player to kind of experiment and have fun and try different things as they're going. And that way it's like, okay, maybe I lost the game versus the villain, but I opened this cool legacy pack, and now something interesting happens. So those packs, some of them have cards that are going to go into the deck, and that you'll play with, like literally shuffling and drawing. Some of them will have cards that go into the rules area and change the rules of the game.
Love that.
And some cards, I don't know what's saying too much. Some cards are going to radically change who you're facing.
Okay.
I don't know if I should be more specific than that.
Like new enemies,
so
new enemies come out. That basically what you're saying.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, that brings me to my next question: is the legacy components will bring forward new villains, because you said all the villains are also trying to get you. Everybody's trying to get the Deck of Wonders, because you've stolen it from Fate. How and when a villain comes out, the villain actually has very specific rules that play against you as the player. How difficult was it to balance all these different villains as they come out and change rules for the player? You had to have play tested this like crazy to find out what works and what doesn't. How difficult was that?
I mean, there were entire vacations where I was just holed up and playing the game nonstop. And my one advantage of being a solo game is I can play test anytime, anywhere. And so that, I think that did a lot in my favor. But it was a lot of time invested playing just stupid, broken stuff that made me mad until you got to the point where you're like, oh, okay, this is starting to feel fun, or like this feels like I've got a chance.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking of one of the early villains, Cullen the Spoiled Prince. One of his minions was a 5/4 minion, so 5 attack, 4 health. And just like for the first 5 games playing against him, the second that minion was drawn, the game was over. And I'd be like doing really good, like and I was, it was terrible. I was getting really frustrated, which is nice because then I can, I have the power to change things. So I had to nerf that card down. I reduced the health on both sides down to 3, which put it in range of a lot of other minions. And it's funny. This is very much a small numbers game. You're not playing minions with 30 attack and 30 health. This is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Anyway, so I had to nerf the health down, and then I added an effect on the villain side. This is the card Forest Troll, and if you've seen the game, you've probably seen the art for the Forest Troll. And on the villain side, I added an effect where when it comes into play, it will destroy another villain minion. So you think of this like raging troll charging at you and knocking one of its own allies out of the way as it's coming for you. And that then started having some really interesting play and just made the card much more manageable. But it was built on, a huge losing streak before I actually won one of those games.
Yeah. Wow. You've got some amazing rules in the game. I love how, because it's solo and you have to decide, there has to be very specific rules around how the enemy works, how the enemy attacks you. And it's so unique that the enemy will only attack you, the player, if the combination of all of the minions of the enemy has will not take out your minions.
Correct.
And
yeah.
Only then will they actually attack you. So the onus is on you, the player, making sure your minions are in the right order to prevent your own damage as well as stay alive. And honestly, I think what you've created in Deck of Wonders, it's exciting. I am honestly very, very excited for this game.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
It's absolutely brilliant what you've done here, Dennis. Honestly,
thank you.
I was watching your video and I'm like, I was giddy. I was like, this is exciting.
Oh, that means a lot. Thank you so much.
And it takes a lot for him to get giddy. So
yeah,
jovial, fine, but giddy, it takes a lot. So.
Thanks, Tico.
Yeah, the kind of what makes this game tick on the villain turn was the idea that I didn't want the player to have downtime. Nothing sucks more in any game than when you have downtime, you have
Sure.
nothing to do, you're just waiting for someone else to act and you don't have to be engaged. And that sucks doubly when not only are you don't have anything to do, but you're doing the other player's homework. Because in some solo games, it's like it's pure automation, and you're just making sure you crank the machine in the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the idea behind the villain turn is while the villain is getting to attack, you as the more clever force, although the objectively underpowered force, you have a little bit of agency to choose your battles. And by rearranging the villain minions and sometimes even your own minions, you can get a better result or
Yes.
pick better fights. The villain minions are going to attack. They're going to do bad things to you, and you're trying to find the least worst thing. Um,
I have to
for,
say one quick thing about that. The fact that you can rearrange your minions and the enemy's minions. As I'm watching that, I'm like, you know what? It feels like you've taken cheating and made it a rule.
oh, that's good. Yeah, yeah. And the
Just
beautiful thing about a solo game is you can cheat and no one's going to call you on
Well,
it.
that's just it. So you're like,
yeah.
okay, you listen, if you're going to cheat, then that you can do it. That's a rule. You can do that.
So the you describe it as an expandable deck too. Are we going to see new decks coming? New themes, new decks coming, and are those
Mhm.
are those coming soon? Are those way down the road? When do we get to see more of this too? How do we get a second deck?
Yeah, I hope so. And certainly my ambition is that this is successful enough to justify expansion after expansion. And if there's appetite for it, I'll do it because this has been just a pure joy experience for me. Like
I
I've
bet.
loved developing it so much. Um, I I know what the first two expansions will be. And I always want to caveat like my focus needs to be on making sure the first game is successful,
Of
right? The
course.
Deck of
Yeah.
Wonders coming out next week needs to be a complete experience, which it is. It needs to tell a discrete story. It needs to like fully explore the mechanics that I've put in it, and I've worked to accomplish all of that. If it's successful enough, I know where I'll go for the next two expansions.
Fantastic.
Um, both expanding, this is fun, expanding on the kind of some special mechanics that aren't even in the game yet. So adding new mechanics to
Yeah.
the game. And then also expanding in some unique ways on that co-op element. So what we talked about before was the co-op element of you're each fighting your own boss, and you can kind of toss weapons back and forth or kind of support each other in interesting ways as you're
Nice.
each in your own battle. What if there were bosses or villains that were engineered for both of you to have to fight? What if they were that
Together.
powerful that
Oh,
you
that
had
would
to bring
be
it?
yes. My
Which
mind
starts to
went
feel
there too
Marvel
when you
Champions.
when you were talking
Yeah.
about co-op. My mind went to a boss you both have to fight.
Yeah.
That would be great. Now, your Kickstarter starts next week, August 25th, and I
Mhm.
understand you have something special happening right at launch. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so we talked about the art earlier on, and the art has absolutely struck a chord with people, myself included. Like this, I'm so
Nice.
excited about it. And so we wanted to find a way to share it. So if Deck of Wonders funds in 48 hours or less, everyone who backs, whether in the first 48 or after, will get the full digital art book for Deck of Wonders for free.
Wow. I
Wow.
love art books. And then you're right,
Yes.
the art is beautiful. That's everybody get out and back this within the first August 25th. Get out there and back Deck of Wonders. Dennis, before
Yes,
we let you
please.
go, what is that one little spark that you love about Deck of Wonders that you want everybody to know about?
Oh man. I think it's that idea that we started with that I mean everyone's life is crazy right now, right? And each person in their own unique way. Um, that doesn't mean you have to sacrifice some of the things that you love that bring you joy. You just need to find a different way to achieve them. And for those of you who love deep, complex games that you can kind of mull over even when you're not playing them and kind of be working on long term, Deck of Wonders is for you. And it's to give you that experience just on your own terms.
That's fantastic. Dennis, we wish you all the best. I think you've got a winner here. I'm excited for this. Starts August 25th. It'll be on for, is it 4 weeks? On
3 weeks
3 weeks on
3 weeks?
Kickstarter.
in and out.
There you go.
right.
Excellent. Good luck to you. Thank you so much for joining us, Dennis. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. This has been so much fun. And it's got the cards like here's Forest Troll that are the final art. Not the final text, by the way. I gotta do some, yeah, just graphic design wise. I think it can be better. But a lot of them look like this. Hang on, there we go. Yeah, where it's just an icon.
Stand-in art for now.
Yeah.